Imagine coming home every day only to find strange events unfolding, stacks of cash scattered across the living room, new home appliances appearing out of nowhere, and wealth seemingly multiplying everywhere. Strange happenings fill the space, yet no one can explain what's going on. Sit back and watch as the mystery unfolds. Adi was a wealthy, middle-aged man living in the heart of a bustling city. Everyone knew him, admired him, and spoke highly of his success. He owned several businesses and had built a name for himself as a man of honor and respect. Adi and his wife, Benna, had a beautiful life together. They lived in love and harmony, and he treated her like a queen, always showering her with the finest things in life. They had recently moved into a stunning mansion on one of the city's best streets. It was grand, with tall, polished windows, towering trees, and gardens blooming with vibrant flowers. On the day they dedicated the house, many people came to celebrate with them. There was laughter, delicious food, and music in the air. But there was one unusual rule in the house. Adi had forbidden Benna from ever opening the door to a room downstairs. Benna thought it strange, but she trusted Adi and left the door alone. During the dedication celebration, something peculiar happened. As Adi was laughing and chatting with the guests, he suddenly felt something odd. Blood began trickling from his ears. Everyone gasped, worried and confused, but Adi quickly excused himself, taking Benna with him. In their room, Benna asked him many questions, wondering why his ears were bleeding. Adi simply shrugged it off, saying he had a minor health issue and would be fine. After that day, Benna started noticing strange things around the house. Sometimes she would come home to find money scattered on the floor or on the shelves, almost as if someone had placed it there on purpose. Other times, she would see stacks of clothes or even shiny pieces of jewelry that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Benna was puzzled, but decided not to ask Adi just yet. Then, something wonderful happened. Benna and Adi were blessed with a baby girl. Their daughter filled the house with joy, her laughter echoing through the halls. They named her Deze, and her sweet smiles brought happiness to everyone. When their baby was born, Adi's mother came to stay with them to help take care of the little one. But soon, she too noticed strange things around the house. Every morning, she would open her wardrobe to find odd surprises. Some days, it was a pile of money. Other days, she found stacks of wrappers and once, even a car key. She was astonished but kept these mysteries to herself. What no one in the family knew was that Adi had a deep, dark secret. Long ago, after he had graduated from university, Adi was an orphan with no family or money. He struggled for years without a job, feeling lost and alone. One day, an old classmate who was now very wealthy reached out to him. The friend introduced Adi to a powerful, secret group that promised wealth and influence. But there was a price to pay, a sacrifice of a part of himself. Adi had hesitated, but ultimately agreed. And over the years, he became the successful man everyone admired. However, strange things continued to happen. Every time someone in the house heard strange noise, like a distant whisper or a thump in the night, they would find something peculiar the next morning. One day it was more jewelry, another time it was clothes or a mysterious envelope filled with cash. Adi continued to grow richer and more influential, but the family sensed that something in the house was not quite right. Yet, no one dared to ask him directly, and the door to the downstairs room remained locked, its mystery hidden behind Adi's unbreakable rule. Adi's life continued to rise like a star in the night sky, and his name spread far and wide in the city. His importation business was booming, and he had gained prominence as one of the most powerful and respectful business figures around. People admired him, but only a few knew of the strange secrets he kept. In the family, their daughter, Deze, was growing up fast, a naturally curious and intelligent girl. Deze was always asking questions and figuring out things on her own. At school, she was at the top of her class, always bringing home awards and high grades. Adi and Benna were immensely proud of her and supported her in every way they could. One day, Deze came home from school and noticed something odd. She had always been observant, and today she noticed there were extra items around the house that she was sure hadn't been there before. There were extra televisions in some rooms, and she counted not one, but 3 gas cookers in the kitchen. Strange furniture had appeared in some corners, and every time she went down the hallway, she thought she could hear faint whispers coming from the downstairs room. Deze's curiosity grew stronger each day. She turned to her mother, Benna, one evening as she was cooking dinner. "Mom, where did all these extra TVs and gas cookers come from? And why do I keep hearing sounds from that room downstairs?" Benna froze, a slight shiver running down her spine. She had no idea how to explain it, and she wasn't even sure herself why these things kept appearing. She tried to avoid Deze's gaze, feeling the weight of the unanswered questions. "I am not sure, Deze," she said, her voice sounding uneasy. "Maybe your dad knows. He's been busy with work." Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, like this video please, and click the notification bell so when I drop a content, you will be the first VIP to get notified. Thank you. Meanwhile, Adi's business ventures were growing faster than ever, especially his importation business. He was in the spotlight now, with people and investors seeking him out daily. But with this fame came competition, and among them was a familiar face from the past, Femi, the friend from secondary school who had introduced him to the court. Femi was also successful, but lately he had started seeing Adi as a threat. One evening, Femi called Adi to meet him privately at a secluded restaurant. The 2 men greeted each other warmly, though there was an unspoken tension between them. "Adi, it's been a long time since we have spoken like this," Femi began, his voice carrying a hint of the old friendship they once shared. "You have done incredibly well. I remember when you were struggling, and now look at you. You are a powerful man in the city." Adi nodded, appreciating the compliment but sensing that something lay beneath his friend's words. "But Adi," Femi continued, lowering his voice and glancing around the room, "I think it would be best if you stepped down from the importation business. We don't need to compete against each other. There are enough markets for each of us. Wouldn't you agree?" Adi frowned, a mix of surprise and confusion in his eyes. He had no intention of stepping down, and he didn't understand why Femi would ask him to. "Femi, I have worked hard for this. I am not planning to just walk away from what I have built." Femi's gaze hardened, his once friendly expression turning serious. "You remember the rules, Adi. The cult isn't just about wealth, it's about loyalty, and there can only be one at the top." The meeting between Adi and Femi took a dark turn. What had started as a civil conversation now felt like a silent storm brewing. Adi sat across from Femi, his face set in determination, unwilling to back down. "Femi," Adi said, his tone low but tense, "you can't expect me to just abandon everything I have built." Femi's eyes narrowed, his hands clenched tightly on the table. "You don't understand, Adi," he said, his voice now harsh. "This is bigger than you, me, or even this city. If you stay in this business, things will happen that you are not ready to handle." The two men glared at each other, the atmosphere thick with tension. Finally, Femi spoke, his words like a thinly veiled threat. You think you are untouchable, Adi, but remember who helped you get here, and remember what we have had to do to get this life. Adi felt a chill run through him, but he refused to show weakness. I will do what I need to do, Femi. You can't control me. With that, the two parted ways, but the silent threat lingered in the air. Adi knew this wasn't over. Femi would not let go so easily. Back home, Adi continued to keep up appearances with his family. When Benna asked him about the strange extra items, the televisions, the gas cookers, the endless supply of appliances that appeared as if by magic, he would just brush it off with the same answer: they are gifts. I can afford them, Benna, so let me spoil the house. Can't a man take care of his family? But Benna was unsettled. The house felt different every day, and the piles of money, wrappers, and items around the house seemed to have a life of their own. She tried to ask Adi about it, but every time he grew irritated, snapping at her to let it go and stop troubling him with questions. Deze had now grown into a 12-year-old girl, but she noticed the growing tension in the house too. She tried to focus on school where things weren't much better. Rumors had started spreading among her classmates, whispers that seemed to follow her in every hallway and every classroom. Some kids snickered and threw words around like ritualists and cult. It wasn't long before they started bullying her openly, taunting her with cruel words. One day, as Deze walked into the school hallway, a group of her classmates gathered around her, sneering. "Hey, Deze," one of them called out mockingly. "How does it feel to be the daughter of a rich ritualist?" Deze's face turned red. "My dad's not a ritualist. He's just successful," she protested, though the words felt weak even to her own ears. "Oh yeah?" Another kid sneered. "Then why do strange things happen at your house all the time? My mom says people like your dad don't get rich without doing evil things." These words stung, and Deze fought back tears as she walked away. She wanted to believe her father was just a hard-working man who cared for his family. But even she couldn't deny the strange happenings in their house. The extra TVs, the mysterious money, the eerie whispers that sometimes seemed to echo from the downstairs room, all of it frightened her. Back at home, Benna was facing her own troubles. Adi had become short-tempered, often lashing out at her whenever she brought up the odd things happening in their house. He would tell her to stop pestering him, that she was only stressing him out. But Benna couldn't shake the unease that had taken root in her heart. She knew something was very wrong, and Adi's secretive behavior only added to her fears. Meanwhile, the feud between Adi and Femi was heating up. Femi began sending messages to Adi, some subtle, some not so much. One day, Adi received a letter with no sender's name, but the message was clear: step down or face the consequences. Adi's anger boiled over. He didn't respond to the threat, but he began taking precautions, watching his back and increasing security around his house. Femi wasn't one to make empty threat, and Adi knew he had to be careful. The threat didn't stop there. One night, as Adi was driving home, a car appeared out of nowhere, swerving dangerously close to his. He recognized it instantly. Femi pulled up beside Adi's car and rolled down his window, staring at Adi with a look that promised more trouble. "You think this is a game, Adi?" Femi shouted, his voice cold. "This is your last warning. Back off, or you won't have a family left to protect." Adi felt a chill run down his spine, but he refused to be intimidated. He sped off, his mind racing with thoughts of revenge. This was no longer just business, it was personal. As Adi grew more paranoid, the strange occurrences in his house escalated. Every night, there seemed to be more and more unexplained items scattered around the house. Sometimes it was stacks of money, other times it was luxury goods, things they didn't even need. Benna was at her wits' end, and Deze was becoming increasingly anxious. One evening, after another argument with Adi about the mysterious items, Benna decided she couldn't stay silent any longer. Adi, please, you need to tell me what's happening. I can't keep pretending everything's normal when it clearly isn't. I'm scared. I'm so desert. But Adi only scowled, his face dark with frustration. Enough, Benna. You don't understand. Just trust me. Everything I do is for this family. Stop questioning me. The shouting match left Benna in tears. She retreated to her room, feeling more isolated than ever. Adi, meanwhile, paced the halls, feeling the weight of his choices pressing down on him. He knew he couldn't back up now, but the cost of his power was becoming unbearable. Despite the tension, Adi's business continued to thrive. His name grew more powerful, his influence spreading across the city. But with this rise came more threats from Femi, who grew more aggressive with each passing day. Femi's words echoed in Adi's mind. There can only be one at the top. Adi's journey into the world of mystic wealth had always held secrets too dangerous to reveal to even Benna. What Benna didn't know was that years ago, when Adi had joined the cult, a spiritualist had set a condition unlike any other Adi had heard before. This spiritualist wasn't just giving him wealth, he was investing in Adi's potential to become the greatest of all the men he had ever blessed. To make sure Adi's fortune rose above all others, the spiritualist made a demand. I will take up residence in your new mansion. Twice a week, you will need to visit me in your room and allow me whisper instructions directly into your ears. No walls or other ears will be allowed to hear this secret. If you miss any visit, your ears will start to bleed as a warning. The spiritualist added one last rule. More curious than all the others, Adi had to spend half of his earnings daily, no matter how excessive the purchases seemed, or he would lose everything. So, Adi regularly went shopping, buying items he didn't need, filling his home with extra TVs, appliances, and furniture to keep up with the spiritualist's demands. One night, after a long day, Adi crept downstairs quietly to meet the spiritualist in the hidden room, his ears ringing slightly as he unlocked the door. Behind the door was more than a simple room. It was an elaborate, underground luxury suite filled with elegant sofas, rich tapestries, and golden light that glimmered against velvet walls. The spiritualist floated in the center of the room, waiting for Adi. As Adi approached, the spiritualist leaned close, whispering instructions for Adi's next big business move. Adi listened intently, his head nodding with understanding. But in another part of the house, Deze's curiosity had only grown. She was drawn to the mysterious room downstairs, and one day she saw her father slipping out of the hidden door and carefully tucking the key underneath a nearby rug. That night, Deze came home from school, her mind buzzing with thoughts of the hidden room. But as she walked through the hallway, something strange caught her eye. Bloodstains smeared across the wall. Adi had been so exhausted that he had neglected his visit to the spiritualist, and his ears had bled in the night, leaving bloody marks as he absent-mindedly touched the walls. Seeing the opportunity, Deze grabbed the hidden key and unlocked the door, her heart pounding. She opened it slowly, and there, suspended in the air, was a strange man, his eyes closed, floating in a trance. The room was dark, illuminated only by a faint, eerie glow around the spiritualist. Fear gripped her, and she let out a scream before collapsing. Adi, hearing his daughter scream, ran toward the room. He knew instantly what had happened. His eyes darted inside, but the spiritualist had vanished. Terror washed over him, knowing that this was the beginning of a downfall he couldn't escape. Adi rushed Desert to the hospital, and when Benna joined them, she asked what had happened. Adi lied, saying he had found Desert unconscious, not wanting to reveal the terrible truth. As they sat by her side, Adi's heart sank. Later that night, as Adi waited in the dim hospital room, he felt a cold whisper in his ear. It was the spiritualist, telling him that because of his carelessness, his daughter would suffer unless he agreed to a new condition. To spare her life, he would have to face a consequence. His ears would grow uncontrollably. Horrified, Adi agreed, knowing he had no choice. The very next night, as Adi and Benna slept, his ears began to grow. In the morning, Benna woke up, only to see Adi's enlarged ears. She screamed, and within days, the story had spread across the city. Everywhere Adi went, people stared, whispered, and laughed at the man with the giant ears. Femi heard the news and mocked Adi's misery, relishing in his old friend's downfall. The curse affected more than Adi's appearance. His wealth began to vanish, slipping through his fingers like sand. Businesses failed, debts mounted, and he went from being one of the wealthiest men in the city to barely scraping by. Benna and Deze, their daughter, struggled alongside him, watching as he fell into poverty. Adi's ears grew and grew, weighing him down with the burden of his choices, a painful reminder of his greed and hidden sins. One day, a pastor visited Adi's neighborhood and heard about his plight. The pastor came to Adi's home, offering prayer and counsel, speaking about forgiveness and redemption. Desperate, Adi listened, feeling hope stir in his heart for the first time in years. He prayed, confessed his regret, and began turning away from his old life. The pastor assured him that with repentance, he could be restored. Miraculously, as months passed, Adi's ears began to shrink. His daughter's health improved, and their family felt peace returning to their lives. Adi embraced his newfound faith, helping others in need and rebuilding his life in honest, humble ways. With time, Adi regained some of his wealth, though it was no longer his focus. He had learned a powerful lesson. True riches lie not in power or possessions, but in living with integrity and passion. Moral of the story: greed and hidden sins bring only pain and misery, but true wealth is found in honesty, kindness, patience, and living a life of purpose and faith. Thank you for watching.